In this Star Wars gaming video, we are going to be comparing the performance of games running on the Switch 2 versus the Switch 1. From frame rate to loading times and resolution, pretty much every Star Wars game on the platform gains a free improvement thanks to the improved hardware of the Switch 2. Before we do take a look at all of the awesome improvements in Star Wars games on Switch 2, make sure you do subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any future Star Wars gaming news updates. So, recently I found a Switch 2 on a little bit of a discount, and this gave me an idea. I should buy it to make a video comparing pretty much all the Star Wars games on the platform and see how they run on Switch 2 compared to Switch 1. I also wanted to get it before Star Wars Outlaws does launch on the platform, which is happening in September, and I'll make a video covering the frame rate and performance and such of that game as well when it does come out. But today we are going to be taking a look at a bunch of games. I took a look at Star Wars Hunters, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Republic Commando, KOTOR 1 and 2, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, as well as Jedi Knight Jedi Outcast, Episode 1 Racer, Bounty Hunter, Jedi Power Battles, and The Force Unleashed. I'm missing Battlefront Classic Collection purely because of its price. This video has taken me about a week to make, and I just cannot afford to buy another game just for this video. Though a lot of the games in this video do follow a similar trend, and Battlefront Classic Collection will likely follow that same trend, and I'll get into all of it in a moment. All Star Wars games are backwards compatible on the Switch 2, in case you didn't know. However, I did come across a major game-breaking issue on one of them, which I'll get into later on in the video as well. Also, all the footage you see today is being filmed within docked mode, not handheld, as that's the only way I'm able to actually film the game. Let's get started with loading times. My method for this test is booting up the game from the internal storage on both devices, so this is not running off an SD card whatsoever. That would obviously be unfair to the Switch 1. So this is just a straight up comparison between the internal storage on both platforms for various games. Now, with some of the older games such as Episode 1 Racer, they don't really take too long to load up on the Switch 1. Running those sort of tests for all these games, I just did not have the time to check every single game. However, newer games, such as LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, are larger and more demanding, and they do have much longer load times. So let's take a look at how LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga fares to start off with. Doing a cold boot straight into the game saves around 14 seconds, which is not a huge amount considering it does still take just under 52 seconds to load into the main menu. That said, it's still a bit of an improvement. However, that's mostly down to the fact that a lot of the screens in the loading up of the game are timed and you can't skip them. It's not so much down to how fast the Switch is loading the game. So it could probably have been done quicker if it wasn't a forced set time. Loading into saves, different levels, and different planets is obviously faster as well. Even though you're only saving a few seconds here and there, it will all add up when you spend a lot more time playing the game. Every second counts, in my opinion. On to another game, and it's Star Wars Hunters. Yes, it's being shut down in October, but I still thought I would cover it given that it is still an active Star Wars game on the platform, and it's the most recent one. Loading into the tutorial is a huge improvement. It goes from just under 22 seconds to under 5. So you are getting a massive performance increase in terms of loading times with Star Wars Hunters on Switch 2. It's just a shame that it won't be long before you can't enjoy that anymore. You will also notice that various models and textures load in slightly quicker at a higher resolution and LOD when you do spawn on the Switch 2. It's very minor, but because it is unoptimized for the Switch 2, there is no Switch 2 variant or update, then there is no actual full optimization, whereas they'd probably be able to fix this on the Switch 2 if they were ever to do Switch 2 update. As we know, that's never going to happen now, unfortunately. Speaking of graphics, I want to point out that you do see a nice little improvement in terms of resolution on Switch 2 compared to Switch 1, playing games like LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga straight out of the box. Once again, this is a game that has not received a Switch 2 update from the developers and probably never will, but playing the game on Switch 2 gives you a sharp image out of the box just from playing the game, which is awesome. You can see here there is just more detail that is visible when you do take a look at the various faces of the characters in the menu just straight away. That's the first thing you'll see when you load up the game on the Switch 2, and it's already much better than the Switch 1. Let's take a look at frame rates now, and we'll start with Star Wars Hunters, as it is the most recent Star Wars game. It is very difficult to replicate the game at a demanding situation online, so I thought I'd go into the training area, have the droids shoot it out, and also just throw a bunch of explosives at them so it can create a lot of particle effects, which will tax the system's hardware. So this isn't an online test, but as you can see, the Switch 2 does maintain 30 frames per second more so than the Switch 1. Next up, let's take a look at the performance of Republic Commando, and we'll be using this scene from towards the start of the game. And as you can see, you still get some frame drops down from 60, some very low ones on Switch 2, but that's because of how the game is. That said, it definitely reaches back up to 60 much quicker and is more stable to an extent compared to Switch 1. Once it gets over that hurdle, it does not drop down very much in comparison to Switch 2. It's pretty much a lock 60. And future lows are not as low as the Switch 1 as well. So I would say I'd recommend playing Republic Commando on Switch 2 because it's much better in terms of frame rate, not just in these cutscenes, but also in game. Except the aiming is completely broken. If you try to aim, you'll either look up or down immediately and you can't reset it. You can only sort of look up or down from the floor to the sky. It's busted. This does need to be addressed by a spy in an update, most likely. I don't think this is a Nintendo thing, as I do know this sometimes can occur on Switch 1, but yeah, it's happening all the time on Republic Commando. I could not get past the game. I tried uninstalling and reinstalling the game. I tried using it on an SD card and it did not work. Other people have reported the same issue as well. It's impossible to do in both handheld and docked mode. KOTOR is another 60 FPS game, and I did notice some slight improvement as well. The frame rate does fluctuate in this sort of intro area a little bit, but once it gets over those bumps on Switch 2, it is a big enough difference to mention. When navigating, you'll see some drops on Switch 1 down to the low 50s, and it doesn't always stick to 60, even if it may get to 58 a lot of the time, whereas on Switch 2, it's pretty much a lock 60 most of the time in my testing. Of course, I do have limited time. I'm unable to test every single game through the entirety of each game twice. That just simply would be impossible, so there might be some instances where the frame rate will drop in some games in certain areas and not stick to a lock 60 on Switch 2. That said, for the most part, every game basically has a nice improvement. Some games bigger than others. Here is Jedi Knights Jedi Academy. I thought I'd go into a multiplayer game on my own with a bunch of bots just to really push the game to its limits. And as you can see, the frame rate on both Switch 1 and Switch 2 is pretty much locked at 60 until people or bots join the game, and unfortunately those hitches are pretty substantial, but less so on Switch 2. The frame rate does recover quicker and doesn't drop as much on Switch 2 compared to Switch 1, so you will see some nice improvement there, specifically on the multiplayer side of things. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is unfortunately locked to 30 frames per second on Switch, so that means actual improvement is somewhat limited. In more demanding areas, yes, you will see a nice improvement over the Switch 1, but it's very limited, unfortunately. As for other games such as Episode 1 Racer, Bounty Hunter, Jedi Power Battles, The Force Unleashed, KOTOR 2 and Jedi Knight 2, I basically didn't spot any difference really, especially the older ones like Racer, Bounty Hunter and Jedi Power Battles, as well as The Force Unleashed. It was pretty much almost identical on both platforms. On the Switch, there is a variety of Star Wars games, but for Switch players who don't play these games on other platforms that are going to be upgrading to the Switch 2, playing this back catalogue of games is definitely going to gain some improvements over playing on Switch 1. Loading times especially, definitely the biggest winner, I would say. You are just going to save so much time playing the game on its internal storage or on the fast SD cards available. With everything being unoptimised for the Switch 2, yes, performance is not a locked 60 FPS and everything, but it's still better, and I would recommend playing pretty much every Star Wars game on this system, aside from Republic Commando, which is basically busted at this point. In terms of Battlefront Classic Collection, like I said, I just don't have the money to afford to spend on a new Star Wars game right now just for this video, and getting refunds from Nintendo for it is a little bit difficult. However, people have reported that it's basically the same as Switch 1. They haven't done any scientific testing with frame rates, but I'd imagine it's pretty much following the same trend as the other games where it will still get some drops here and there, but it's largely going to stick to the target frame rate and the drops won't be as bad. You are still going to get all the bugs and issues that come with Battlefront Classic Collection on the Switch 2. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If there is enough demand, I may be able to get a Battlefront Classic Collection copy, but again, it's just quite expensive, and all I'm doing is losing a lot of time and money making videos like these. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything I've shared in this video. Are there any surprises? And if you've picked up the Switch, or if you are thinking about picking it up, what Star Wars games are you going to be playing on it? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like to help support the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss any future Star Wars gaming videos. And if you did miss any of my previous videos, click on the playlist on screen right now, and I shall see you in my next video. Goodbye.